CBS Sports released their top 100 players list, and the Chicago Bears have 2 players listed in the top 100. But I want to talk about why Montez Sweat and Jaylon Johnson just received some of the most motivation that they're going to need to push themselves forward in the 2025 season. We're going to look at that plus some other things and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the CBS Sports released their top 100 list, and we got 2 players listed on that. We're going to start off at the top. Joe Thuney, who was listed as number 86 last year, moved up to number 55 this year. And Joe Thuney is a player that, you know, he's a really important piece to what the Chicago Bears are going to do. Of course, the revamp of the entire interior of that offensive line is important to what the Bears are bringing here. But when you look at Joe Thuney, people forget last year he made the move to left tackle, and that's a position that wasn't necessarily best suited for him or his skill set. He's clearly better at left guard than left tackle. I think that was something that was made clear by his play over last season, and that's perfectly fine. I don't mean no knock on him at all because of that, right? I want to be clear in that. But I think when you look at it, right, is that now you're bringing in Joe Thuney, a player that's going to be playing guard, is going to be playing a position that is better suited for him, and you've used that now to help extend your offensive line, to put your offensive line in a much better place than what it has been since Ryan Poles has been here. He was part of that overhaul that the Bears made to really focus on the trenches. And, you know, the Bears trading for him was really a sign of that, as well as getting Jonah Jackson. You get a guy in Joe Thuney who's played on Super Bowl teams, right? And who has had that excellence. He's been an all-pro. He's been all those type of things. And so Thuney being here, right, and being in that top 100, being at number 55, is a great move for him. And I think that's an amazing place for him to be at when it comes down to it. And so when you look at what Joe Thuney is going to be bringing to this team, like, I want to be clear here, right? When you look at how now having veteran on that entire offensive line, you got Drew Dahlman at center, you got Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson at guards. That's going to help your tackles, right? You got a young rookie tackle here in Ozzie Trapillo who could end up being your starter. Him being there next to all pro guards are going to help him for sure. You got Darnell Wright, who has been through so much turmoil and up and down and bad play on this offensive line overall, and that's going to help the development of those young guys as well. Of course, bringing Dan Rouchar in is a huge part of that. Also, when you look at all of that, so that plays a huge role into all of this. And I think when it all comes down to it, the Bears have now set themselves up to have an offensive line that can be good enough for this team to compete now, and it gives Ryan Poles time to go out and find those next crop of young offensive linemen who are going to eventually take over for Joe Thuney and take over for Jonah Jackson and bring that into what this team, and then you have a nice young studded offensive line. But you've paid for the veterans now, right? Because you wanted to up your standard. You wanted to up your level of play right now immediately. And that shows that aggression level that Ryan Poles has not shown in the trenches before. And Joe Thuney is a perfect example of that. And that's why I love having Joe Thuney here. I think that's going to help a lot for the development of the young guys that we have here. And Joe Thuney is a dog. And you need those dogs on the offensive line. You need those dogs to bring in exactly what you need. You need all of that for the Chicago Bears team. And the fact of the matter is that this is going to be now an offensive line that is hopefully going to go from a weakness to a strength for the Chicago Bears. Now, they got to go out and prove it, right? But this ranking here, not to say that the top 100 rankings, all this stuff is kind of arbitrary in a way, right? But it just shows that how Joe Thuney is looked at amongst the players on offensive lines around the NFL. And so let's hope that he's going to bring that, help create a standard here for the Chicago Bears in the offensive line. But the next one, Jaylon Johnson, who was ranked at number 34 last year, going down to 71 this year. Now, I want to be clear here. I understand why. Jaylon Johnson and the Chicago Bears defense, it was not great last year. You look at the losing streak that we had, some of the poor performances from the defense. It's hard not to look at that, and as well as some of Jaylon's own personal stats. He went down from 4 interceptions down to 2 from 2023 to 2024. And while that's not always the great sign, one of the biggest conversations that I had here right before Jaylon Johnson signed his contract extension, when there was all that talk about was he going to get extended, was he going to not, was about Jaylon Johnson and the interception number. Now, the interception number is something that, of course, box score stat watchers like to use to validate how good a cornerback or whatever or secondary player is. But I say that looking at it, you got to watch the game. And the way that Jaylon Johnson has shut down a whole side of the field where opposing quarterbacks just don't throw to his side of the field, that played a part into why those interception numbers were low. But then he turned around and in 2023 responded to that with 4 interceptions, the most of his NFL career at that point in time. He had only had 1 in his NFL career at that point, right? But then you look at now how he's going to be used. And like I said, Jaylon Johnson is a player that already talked about what his personal goals were for the season. And I said once that came out that if he even achieves 60% of what his goals were, that's going to be one of the best cornerback seasons that we've seen in a Chicago Bears uniform, right? One of the best, not the best, right? And so that's a huge, and I'm glad that he has that standard set for himself. But Jaylon Johnson has already been a player that's been motivated by being slept on, by being motivated by, being doubted by, and he's been motivated by all of that. And now how he's going to be used under Dennis Allen and all the defensive backs here, right? That he is going to be, and Jaylon Johnson has talked about it, he's going to be able to float around more. He's not going to just be in zone to shut down one side of the field. He's going to be more in man coverage. He's going to do some more kind of creative things there. And because that's going to happen here for him, we could see one of the seasons from Jaylon Johnson that even the box score stat watchers look at and say, Jaylon Johnson had a great season. I get it. Not everybody has a lot of time to watch football. Not a shot towards y'all, but y'all should be watching more football if you're going to talk about it at a high level. Nonetheless, Jaylon is a petty player. And as somebody asked Petty Roosevelt, I appreciate players that use that pettiness, not to just be petty and snarky in interviews or things like that, but more so to put it on the football field. Jaylon Johnson is a player that wants to prove it all out on the field. And now he's going to, I can see Jaylon Johnson completely using that to give himself some motivation to prove the doubters wrong on the football field. And I, for one, am never mad about players who leave it and put it out on the field. Never mad at that. And so I think that this is, while he's still rated in the top 100, moving down from 34 to 71, he's definitely going to use that as motivation. And I think that he's going to be a player that really uses this season and the increased production from the defensive line and defense overall under Dennis Allen to propel him to have one of the best seasons that he's ever had in his NFL career. People forget Jaylon Johnson is still an extremely young player. He's only 26 years old. Yes, he's been in the NFL. He's going into his 7th year in the NFL. 6th year in the NFL, but he's only 26 years old. Jaylon Johnson is a player that I think still has some of his game that he can still uncover. And I think that Dennis Allen is going to be a big reason why we could see the best season from Jaylon Johnson yet. And he's going to see this top 100 list, whether he says it out loud or not. I have full belief that he's going to use that for motivation. 2 other players that should use this as motivation as well. DJ Moore did not make the list. He did not make the list, right? Devontae Adams, Ladd McConkey were the 2 players that were lowest rated wide receivers on this list this year. And Adams is a little bit older than McConkey, and when it comes down to that, Mike Evans was also higher at his age as well. DJ Moore is going to be very motivated, or he should be motivated by this. Me, Bobby, and C-Dub, we've talked about how DJ Moore needs more motivation, that he needs to be more of a leader this year, right? DJ Moore is one of the players that I look up that need to step up this year. DJ Moore, Montez Sweat, Tremaine Edmonds. These are the players that have to step up this year for the Chicago Bears as veterans. Now, DJ being left off this, I hope that he does use this to come out. And, there are a lot of things. DJ Moore was clearly one of the players that wore the frustration of the state of the Chicago Bears on his sleeve last year. You could see how visibly frustrated he was by how the Bears were playing, the lack of production offensively, and the lack of just overall success. He was somebody that was completely frustrated by that, and he wore that very loudly. He did not hide that. You need to see a DJ Moore that's more focused, more locked in, and takes on that leadership role, because that's what you need. You're a veteran here. You're one of the highest paid, largest contracts that the Chicago Bears have ever given out. You have to step up this year. And DJ Moore should use the doubt around him, the doubt around this team overall, to propel him to go into a place where he's giving more for this Bears team. And I want to see a great season from DJ Moore. Montez Sweat also left off this list, right? And that's a player that, Montez would have, when it comes to Montez Sweat, I'll say this. We've talked a lot about how not everything is all about the box score. Not everything is all on the stat sheet, right? As far as of what you bring and how you help a football team. But for Sweat, Now that the defensive line has improved, and we got to see how that's going to be actually on the football field and not just on paper. But I think that you're going to see a Montez Sweat that comes in here and that he's locked in. All you need is the defensive line to perform well enough to where they can't just zero in on Montez Sweat, because you have other threats out there on the field that also can put pressure on your quarterbacks. I think the Bears have done a good job of that. Now, again, this is in theory. We got to see how it's going to be in reality once everything gets on the football field, but we're going to see that. And this needs to be a year that Montez Sweat has to step up exponentially for the Chicago Bears as well. You cannot have a season for Montez Sweat where he's just out there and you don't feel him. You have to feel Montez Sweat every play, every down. His presence needs to be felt. And whether that's creating other open looks by him being double teamed, or the moment that he's not double teamed, getting out there and putting pressures out there, forcing quarterbacks to hurry up and make decisions and getting sacks. That's what we need to see from Montez Sweat this year. I have confidence that we will. I think that he's going to be motivated. I think he's another player that under Dennis Allen sees what this team could be, and they look at it and they say, "No, I can thrive in this. It's not just a possibility of me thriving. I'm going to make sure that I thrive in this scenario for the Chicago Bears." I think that that's what we're going to see from Montez Sweat this year. And I think it's going to be a season that, that reminds us of what he did when he first came here. He came out the gate firing on all cylinders. And I've already seen the people that are ready to make the comparisons. Well, it's going to be like Khalil Mack. He's going to have a good year followed by a bad year. It's going to be those things up and down. And I think this is going to be one of those seasons where it's definitely going to be an up season. Now, I don't think he's going to be as up and down where it's one good season, one, kind of so-so season. But I think that Montez understands what he needs to bring here for the Chicago Bears this year. He understands what he has to show for the Bears team this year. And I think he's going to be equipped, ready to go, and motivated to bring it when it comes down to it as well. And let's see it. Let's hope that the Bears are locked in and ready to get that done, because if they are, that's going to be a very big boon up for the Chicago Bears and what we need out of the team this year. But you guys, as always, can let me know how you feel down below. But with that said, I want to get into, we've been talking a lot about how the Bears are viewed, right? And things have started changing. We had the Bears wide receiver core listed as number 9. As far as the top, wide receiver cores, they graded every team. The Bears were listed as number 9, which is really good to see that people are recognizing the talent that we have that's going to be catching the ball, catching passes from Caleb Williams this year. And as well as with with Ben Johnson's play calling, it should put these players in a very good situation and put them in a place where we're getting more out of them. So that's the thing that I love to see when it comes down to it. But it seems like people are starting to realize that DeAndre Swift could have a very big year this year behind this offensive line, right? I think that's the thing that you have to look at with it when it comes down to it. DeAndre Swift, this was said about DeAndre Swift. Chicago was bottom 5 in both points and yards last season, and no team had fewer red zone drives. When the Bears did find their way into the red zone, Swift saw 31 opportunities but scored on just 3. His 9.7% red zone touchdown rank ranked 4th lowest among backs with 30-plus red zone opportunities and was the lowest of his career by far. Swift is primed for a situational bump in scoring opportunities and a mathematical bump in scoring efficiency. Even if he saw just 31 red zone opportunities again, a league average 18% touchdown rate would produce an additional 2 or 3 touchdowns in that zone, in that area alone. If the improved offense translates into growth in scoring opportunities and his efficiency sees a spike as well, Swift could be a sneaky bet for double-digit scrimmage scores in 2025, something he hasn't accomplished since his rookie year. So that comes from 4for4.com, which is more of a fantasy site. But I love that they called it a situational bump, because I do think that is a great way to describe it, is that the situation here around the Chicago Bears has changed. The offensive line has seen a dramatic upturn, so therefore it should be fair to say that you should now see if it's just a benefit of the situation that he's in now, you should see a jump from DeAndre Swift and what he's able to produce for the Chicago Bears this year. And I, for one, hope that that's true and that continues, man. So we'll see what DeAndre Swift can bring. I do think that this running back room is a little bit slept on. I don't know if it's going to be top 10 or anything like that, but I do think it's going to be in the top 15 of the league, because you have such a better offensive line and such a better play caller that actually sets things up. And I think the Bears are set to be in a position that's going to be really advantageous to its running back room. And let's hope that continues as well for the Chicago Bears this year. So let me know what you guys think on that. Is DeAndre Swift set to have a situational bump this upcoming year for the Chicago Bears? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into one voicemail we got for today. This one's from Darius.
What's happening, guys? Darius from Dallas, man. Just listened to the most recent episode and want to give my thoughts on what Hayes was talking about Montez Sweat. I do think it's just another one of them things where they just had to find something to report on and, make a big deal out of it. Anybody with common sense that watched Bears games last year probably going to see that, man, the kid was getting double teamed because your boy Javon Dexter wasn't getting no goddamn pressure up the middle no more. And that's something that you need to have from a defensive end, man. You got to have pressure up the middle that's going to push that quarterback to either one side or the other, and that's how they get their sacks. So if you're only getting pressure or you only have a threat of as a quarterback, as an opposing quarterback, if you only know that your threat of pressure is just from the right side and that's it, hell, it's easy to step into the pocket and do what you need to do to make a throw. But Jared Goff, if you go back and look at how he performed, let's say Jared Goff, for example, go back and look at how he performed in the Rams and how he lost that Super Bowl. When you generate pressure up the middle, he can't fucking handle it. Jared Goff, we should have never lost any games to Detroit because that has been the recipe to beating Jared Goff. Generating pressure up the middle. And that's just, it's hard for a defensive end when you're on that line and you're the only potential threat. And most of the year, if not all of it, I mean, other than the first 4 or 5 weeks that we give Javon Dexter credit for, Montez was the only threat on that defensive line. I mean, you got DeMarcus Walker or some shit on the other end. Come on, guys. I don't even understand how they're even saying that. That's not even close to being a top 3 worst of our contracts. Hell, I'd probably say Tremaine Edmonds is a worse contract than Montez. And that's just not to say that Tremaine played horrible or anything like that, but I mean, just like Hayes said, he ain't lived up to that contract. But I do think that's because maybe he had an incompetent defensive coordinator that had him playing out of position. Maybe he needs to be weak side linebacker. Maybe that's because when he was in Buffalo, that's where he thrived at, is the weak side. So we got a common sense coach, man, that's going to generate pressure up the middle, and people are going to see what Montez is really about this year. That's just the old negative ass Chicago media finding something to report on. I don't understand. I've never seen another media that hates their football team more than Chicago. I don't get it, but that's just how it is, man, I guess. But no, nothing's wrong with Montez. He's going to ball out. I think a good number, I'd probably say, I think 8 or 9 is not enough, Hayes. I think about 10 to 11 is right where we need him to be at. But we're going to see that this year. But let me know what y'all think. Text us up there down.
No, and Darius, you're completely right. I think that, people do judge the Bears harshly. A lot of people have been saying like Bears tax, right? I think that's what we've been using for like the way that the media comes at the Chicago Bears about things. And, it is what it is. It kind of comes with the territory. I kind of understand it. Montez, I'm not even blaming that just on Javon Dexter. You pointed out like DeMarcus Walker on the other side, things like that. Like, yeah, there was a lot going wrong with the Bears defense. Line. I think even outside of just the talent, like we didn't blitz. We weren't creative in how we had our packages in either blitz or coverage packages at all. I think all that played a part into that as well. And like we know that the defense, the team as a whole really fell off a lot, after most of the season, right? So it comes down to that. Montez is going to be fine. I think under Dennis Allen, with the creative way that we're going to use defensively, how we're going to use defensive backs, how we're going to blitz more, have more people inside the box, go to more man coverage, just the overall more aggressive defensive scheme that we're going to see under Dennis Allen is going to play a big part into why this Bears team is going to be much better defensively. You're going to see things like Montez Sweat have better years, Jaylon Johnson have better years, Kylan Gordon can have really good years, and now having Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings, hopefully he can stay healthy as well. Javon Dexter takes another step up. Dayo, Austin Booker, those other guys on the opposite side are all going to be able to bring more and more consistently to help Montez Sweat. And like I said, for like Dayo, for example, like I think that Dayo can have a 6, 7, 8 sack season. But I think outside of that, it's just about if he can consistently bring pressure from that opposite side to where they can't double team with Montez on the other side, because then you got this big beast coming at you from the other side of it. Like, that's going to be a thing. And you're trying to force offenses to have to pick your poison, right? What are you going to do? And when you have a balanced attack on that defensive line, that makes everything so much easier. So I think that plays a huge part and role into it as well. So great voicemail, as always, from Darius. Great points being made there. And like overall, that bump that we're going to get from Dennis Allen being here with this team, and I think we've made improvements overall. It's just going to be a lot easier, I think, for Montez Sweat than what it was last year. But he's still got to step up. And like I said, he's going to use different things as motivation. But Montez understands what and the importance that his role has with the Chicago Bears. But yeah, people saying he's the Bears' worst contract, that's just disingenuous as hell. But I think Montez got a lot to prove this year, and I think he's going to do a pretty damn good job at proving it, if I say so myself. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, and we'll see you guys bright and early on the next one. Love you guys, and like I like to end everything on Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.